All right, everybody, welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tony DeMakis. And this podcast is just to talk about what's going on in the industry, have a little bit of positivity, some optimism in the world, and just do some education and some fun. And it's not nuts and bolts. It's not numbers. It's not all those other kinds of things. There's plenty of other podcasts for that. That's not what we're going to do today. We're going to have some fun and we're going to talk about stuff that actually matters to us. And we're going to go forward. So, I'm from Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, where we are mold makers. We're mold makers that don't build molds. And that's weird. I know. And that's fine. We do all the stuff that mold makers don't want to do. So the polishing, the laser welding, the laser engraving, hot runner manifold repair, preventative mold maintenance. And we also sell and build a full line of laser welding and laser engraving equipment made in the United States, 100% made in the United States. We're not just, building it here. We're manufacturing it, designing it, developing it, creating it. All of it's done here. So that's enough about me. I'm excited about today because we've got a friend of mine on the show who is, the easiest thing to say is an industry leader, right? She's doing things that other people aren't doing, and she's trying to help people to understand what this crazy plastics industry is. So I am going to bring in Mercedes. If you want to unmute yourself, we can do that. And then we'll go here. Hey, it's Mercedes, everybody.
Hey, Tony, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. I'm glad that we were able to do this. I mean, we've been talking about it for a little while now and trying to figure out when this would work. I mean, I was fortunate enough to come on to the Plastchicks show a while ago, and that was fun. Mm-hmm. That was just Instagram. Do you guys ever do things outside of Instagram, or is it always?
We do. So typically, well, first of all, I'm Mercedes Landázuri.
I'm jumping right into it.
I'm from Peacock Colors and Vortex Liquid Color. Peacock is here in the Chicago suburbs, and Vortex Liquid Color, our sister company, is up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So here in Chicago burbs, we do color master batch and compounding, and then up north, we do liquid color. For plastics. So, and then Tony and I got to know each other through SPE, yep, primarily, and just contacts in the industry. I am a member of Chicago section, and then on the board for color and appearance division. I'm the councilor, and then the recycling division. I'm the current chair, soon to be past chair. So we're both pretty involved in that. And then I also co-host a podcast called Plastchicks. And so that's what you were just talking about, Tony. So, we do, as far as the Instagram thing, that was something that started, during lockdown with the pandemic, quarantinis we would do every night, and just on Instagram Live, but with the pandemic, typically we were doing our plastic sessions live, kind of in small conference rooms, while conferences were going on, and we would record them, and then SPE releases them the first Friday of every month. But now with the pandemic, we are taking like lunchtime sessions in some of the SPE virtual conferences, yep, and we do our interviews there, and then SPE posts them on the SPE YouTube as well.
Yep. You guys have, you and Lindsay, I can't say you guys, you girls, you people.
You can say you guys, that's how I say it, but
I just don't want to upset anybody. And I don't know what upsets anybody anymore. So we're just gonna be careful. Y'all were kind of like I was, right? I mean, it's a fun thing to do, the podcasts. And, we started doing ours as a way to just talk about the industry and get to know people. When I started the podcast, I had only been with Alliance for maybe 6 months. My father started the company, but that doesn't mean I knew anything or anybody. Mm-hmm. And I used it as a stepping stone, a way for me to get to know people and reach out in a friendly, easy way and say, hey, I've got this thing that I'm trying to do. I'd love to tell your story and get to know you. And it's kind of rolled and evolved, and it's been fun. And then, same thing with the pandemic. We can't get together. We can't do these things. So let's do something a little bit unique and have some fun with it and tell people stories, because we can't have lunch together and we can't do the things that we want to do. So yeah, kind of makeshift. And that's why I love the quarantini. It was like, grab a drink and let's talk about life and things and industry and whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Lindsay and I should start it up like, I don't know, once a month or something like that at least. But because we do miss each other a lot. I was just texting with her this morning. But
yeah. Well, hopefully she'll join us. I know she's been busy and has a lot going on in life.
She does. I did want to talk, of course, as I always want to talk about Lindsay Nebel, my podcast co-host, just about that relationship, how that started. She and I worked together. We also met through SPE. I was putting together the first women's panel and networking event for that SPE had. It was at the 75th ANTEC, the 75th Annual Technical Conference. It was the first event that was like, women centric. And to put it together, it was just, I was working with Sue and Nikki at HQ and at SPE headquarters, and it was just, she had to go through because we didn't have any stats on like who was male and female, right? That wasn't ever a box that we checked initially. So to kind of gauge interest, so she just went through manually and found like who she assumed, were going to be females, and sent out, gauging like a mass email, gauging people's interest, and then also seeing, well, who would want to be involved in the planning. And Lindsay said she would want to be involved in the planning. And that's how we met. We met on a conference call several years ago. And she was really active on these conference calls, on the planning calls. She was doing a ton. And we started internet stalking each other and unbeknownst to each other. And I was reading articles about her. She was reading an article about me, and she showed it to her husband. And he said, this girl Mercedes, like she does everything that you do. Like she's kind of your nemesis. So she told me that story when we actually first met at that ANTEC, when we first met in person. And we've been great friends ever since. And, I tell everybody the best thing that you can do, is find a nemesis, find somebody who is, your best competitor can be your best friend. Of course, Lindsay and I don't compete directly in business, but we do, with our aspirations, we inspire each other, right? With our accomplishments. She bought a house, then I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a condo, right? Like, and promotions and things like that. And it's just amazing. And to be able to have that kind of partner in crime where you're inspired by them and competing with them, and it holds you accountable too. It's just the one of my greatest relationships that I have.
Those things are so good because they make you better. And nemesis is a fun word. It's like that movie. Now I can't even think of it. Unbreakable with Bruce Willis. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that.
Where like Samuel L. Jackson is Mr. Glass and Bruce Willis is like this superhero that's not really a superhero.
Right. I remember.
And they need each other. Otherwise they don't serve a purpose. So they're a nemesis with each other. Otherwise they don't have a purpose. And I think it's cool to be able to do that. Like our first podcast was with Stacey Bales. And, Bales is, for all intents and purposes, our biggest competitor. They do.
I remember you telling me that, and your dad saying, "Why are you interviewing?"
And at the same rate, like, my answer is always, if our customer is going to leave us because they heard of Stacey, they weren't really our customer. We weren't doing a good job. So I would rather build a relationship. So it's somebody that I know and somebody I can trust and somebody I can refer to things to if I don't have enough capacity. I mean, that doesn't happen. We always have enough capacity and we'll get things done whenever we need to. But, just that there's the industry is too big to have people that you can't trust and work with. And I love when things like the SPE or industry bring people together. And like, I'm working with Lindsay on the SPE membership committee. And I still owe her a video that I need to do and all kinds of other things, but it's so cool to see the people that get involved and how they have impacts in the industry. One of the things, it's not necessarily on here, but I would love to talk to you about SPE and your involvement and what you see through SPE and the benefit and the the purpose behind it, because I think sometimes that gets lost and people go, oh, it's just another organization. What's the point? I pay my dues. I get my newsletter. What else do I need to do? And there's so much more to it than that I think people are missing out on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And anything, I mean, anything is on the table here for discussion, with me. I was explaining this so we have, a woman in purchasing. She's, her background educationally, she's a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
And she is, now, becoming our supply chain manager. And she's only been working in the industry for a couple months. And I started telling her about SPE and started telling her about the relationships that, that I'm building, but also, I mean, it's just such an incredible resource for knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You and I are very similar in the way that we don't have technical backgrounds, right?
No, nobody's going to accuse me of knowing too much.
Right. And that's, I think that's a strength for both of us, because we can both come in a room and say, hey, teach me, and we have no shame. Right.
Right.
But the amount, I mean, my title now, right? I'm Color Lab Technology Director, right? I do laugh saying it, and I was, I mean, I'm on the board for Color and Appearance Division, but I didn't take a day of math or science in college. And I started really working in color about 5 years ago. And so much of my technical knowledge has come, of course, on the job, but through SPE, and it's, and so when I was interviewing for this job and had, of course, people talk about imposter syndrome and can I do this? And I wasn't even sharing some of the, that I was applying for this role with some of the other members of the Color and Appearance Division board, because I was like, hey, like they just know I'm like this stupid color salesperson who doesn't know anything. But then, in my first couple weeks here, and working in the lab and managing the lab for the first time, all of that knowledge really became activated. It's like you like sitting in all of the talks, in the SPE conferences and all the webinars and things like that. And suddenly I'm able to apply the knowledge. It's like when you, very common in the US, like you take Spanish class for, middle school and high school. Yep. And you still don't know anything, right? However, if you're put into a situation where you're suddenly surrounded by Spanish speakers, then that knowledge is activated, and it's like, oh wait, no, I do know this, and everything starts clicking, and that's when fluency happens. So it's been amazing to me to suddenly all the pieces start fitting together, and what was once a little like dot picture, it starts getting filled in with more and more pixels, and then everything's becoming clear. And more than that too, when I was just starting, especially, making friends like Lindsay and actually Kate, who reports to me now, who I met when she was in college, Kate Pellet. She went to Penn State Behrend as well.
Oh, and that's a fun name for somebody that sells.
Right. It's the funnest name. But having people like that who when I'm trying to run a molding machine back, 2 companies ago, I was like, hey, like, can you text me how to fix this problem? And like, I said Lindsay would always do like GIF consulting for me. She would just like, solve my problem using GIFs of Rihanna or, but it's amazing, because the connections that you form, but really for me, SPE has just been huge for the knowledge transfer.
Right.
Yeah.
It was funny. Who was I talking to? I was talking to Christina Fuges.
Okay.
And we were talking about the membership committee with Lindsay, and the video that I'm supposed to be in charge of is technical data. And Christina was like, are you serious? Why did they give you technical data? Like, were you the last person to sign up? You are the furthest person from technical data that I know of. Like, what are the other categories? And I told her, she's like, you should do that one. You should do that one. You should do that one, but you shouldn't do technical data. And my argument to her is, I think I'm the perfect person to do technical data because I don't have any. So why do I join the SPE? For the technical data. Yeah. So that I can reach out to the Scott Peters and the people in the different divisions. If I have recycling questions, I can reach out to you because I don't know anything about recycling other than I put it in my bin in the garage. But, I think that I'm the perfect person to say, join SPE for technical data because I don't have any. and I need this as a resource for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I was just flashing back to, I think it was Dr. Rajan Patel. We did, so back when I was leading the, what was then called the Next Generation Advisory Board, the kind of young professionals,
Yep.
section kind of thing of SPE, we had an in-person meeting at the International Polyolefins Conference in Texas. And I set up a little session for our group with one of the SPE fellows that year, Dr. Rajan Patel. Believe that was him. And several years ago. But one thing that he said was, when we asked him, like, what do you get out of SPE membership? He's like, this is where I come to make my mistakes.
Oh,
he said, this is, I come and I learn how to do things here that I didn't know. And I can mess them up here, and it's not my job. I'm not going to get fired for it, and I'm going to learn. How to do it well and do it correctly. When I started leading that section of SPE, it's crazy to think about now, but whenever it was like 4 years ago, maybe now, I didn't know how to send out like a calendar invite.
right.
Isn't that insane? Like 4 or 5 years ago, but I didn't know how to do that before. I didn't know how to set that up. And it's like that little thing, or putting together a PowerPoint presentation. I think I did that for the first time for SPE. And, it was just, I had a different skill set. So you can develop technical knowledge, you can develop other things that also other things that your current employer or your business doesn't have room for you to do. Right.
And grow and learn and do things and be surrounded by tons of mentors that can help you grow in those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I'm sure that there's like, maybe someone who's like more marketing focused in mold technologies. You're in mold technologies division, right? Yeah. So, your background is more in marketing, and I'm sure that you can be a mentor to whoever wants to learn marketing and graphic design in that division, which is a skill that a lot of technical people don't have.
Right. And I mean, my brother, my dad, they're usually very supportive, but when I told them that I was the chair of the mold technologies division, they were like, why? You don't know anything. And I was like, maybe that's what they like about me, that I don't know anything. And I think there's something to that also, right? Like we've got some people at our facility at Alliance that they're not mold makers. They're laser welders. So they don't understand what can't be done. They just know what they can do. So, taking somebody like myself that doesn't have experience in the SPE or I'm not an engineer by any stretch, and putting me in charge of that role, I don't know what we can't do. So everything is an opportunity, and we can move forward with that. So it's a good thing. So we've got people watching on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Go ahead, put your name in the chat, put the company that you work with in the chat, comment on what we're talking about, ask a question. The best question and the best comment, we're going to give prizes to. So get involved, participate. We want to make this a conversation that you guys want to hear about also, because we can go on and on forever. I mean, like I said in the LinkedIn post, the last time you and I were together face to face was in the Alliance conference room, and I think it was like a 3-hour interview.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What are you doing up there?" And I was like, "I just can't stop talking to her."
It was an amazing discussion. It was yeah. I feel so fortunate to have met you and to find somebody in the industry who's so like-minded, and so authentic. I think we talked a lot about authenticity that day, and that's been something that I've been realized now in retrospect that I'd really struggled with and was not fully comfortable with, coming into the industry and knowing that I didn't have a technical background, and what value could I bring? Was I going to get laughed out of the room at my first conference? And that was not the reaction I got. There's all this push towards diversity now, and all these studies that are showing how diversity and diversity of thought can really make a company much more profitable, right? And that's when you have people thinking different ways, you have different ways of solving problems,
right?
And that's when you have innovation. So, but understanding that and not trying to come off as something or some background that I don't have, has been a process for me,
Right.
it's and understanding that what I do know, and how I do think has value in this world where maybe people don't think recruiters, so I was laid off, as you know, in October of last year.
Yeah.
And recruiters never, and before that, when my other company was closing, before I worked for Techmer, I'd tried to talk to recruiters, and they wouldn't see the value in me, right? Because they just saw, oh, she's only been in the industry for a couple of years. They see that I don't have a technical background. They're like, how can I sell this girl? Right. Yet, because of the connections I made in SPE, people knew my work ethic, and they saw value in, the way I thought, and my skill set that was different. And so, yeah, it's been a process to get to that authenticity. But once, now I feel like it's like almost like enlightenment. It's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And this is who I am. And this is what's important to me. And let's go,
I 100, and I think, I don't want to say I was the first, but as soon as I saw your post that you were laid off, I was like, oh, I got to call her. And like, I got all giddy, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Unfortunately you went somewhere else, and that's fine. We'll still work together in other capacities, which is great.
Absolutely.
But it was just like, I couldn't get it. Cause I see what you bring in an aspect that you can't teach, right? The authenticity part of it, the realism, the humor, the life, like all the stuff that you can't teach somebody, is what I saw. And just the outgoingness and the willingness to do things and put yourself out there and try things. And if you look foolish at something, who cares? That's kind of what I've been doing going forward, is just like, listen, I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not. And if I am, we should all leave the room, because it's not a good room to be in. And it's just, what can I bring that's different? And it's just, I like seeing people smile. I like seeing people happy, and I like seeing people succeed. And that's what I'm going to try and do. Along the way, I can help you do some work, but, I'm more interested in forming that relationship with people and just helping them to bring out their best, and realizing that and seeing it. And I think you're right. There's no way a recruiter is going to find that, not for a plastics position.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's something too that I see in, the two people that stand out to me the most, of course. So we'll always keep talking about her, but Lindsay, Lindsay Neville, she stood out to me on the phone calls because she spoke differently. She spoke differently than everybody else. She, with a lot of candor, very real, and it wasn't this, even though she is a technical person, she didn't sound like all the technical people that I talked to.
Right.
And it was relatable to me, and it drew me in, and drew me in deeper to the industry. And then another person that I think is, and this is not just, and Lindsay looks different too, right? Like she comes in with these like bright lipsticks. We're always like texting each other, like pictures of her outfit, and hers specifically, her lipsticks, and it's like, you can be a badass, engineer and wear amazing lipsticks,
Absolutely.
And it's like, and you can talk in a nonchalant way and present things, at council meetings, with, I'm trying to think of some of the funny things that she's presented, but it's like having that authenticity is just so compelling and inspiring, and you can draw in so much, because there's not a lot of there. Well, I mean, we're working on it, but there's not a lot of diversity in our industry. But there can be more when we start, embracing our own authentic selves, and stop trying to be the same, fit the same mold. We got to break the mold, right?
And I think part of the problem is, even when there's diversity, you don't allow people to be diverse.
Yeah, exactly.
So you hire for diversity, but then you want to put them in the same box as everybody else instead of letting them be their own person. I mean, diversity doesn't have to be skin color or gender or whatever. It's just allowing people to be themselves and embracing who they are and growing that person, not saying, okay, great. Now you're going to be this. Be just this. Answer the questions just like this. Don't add your own flavor. Don't make it yours. And I think that's the danger. Diversity is, I'm all for it. Like I love the amount of women in the industry. I think it's great. I mean, you were talking about authentic and unique people. To me, one of my friends, Patricia Miller, is one of the most,
the other person I was thinking about with.
She is one of the most authentic, real people that I know. And I love her to death. From Matrix 4.
And she doesn't look like the stereotypical engineer, or person who runs an injection molding company.
I went to a NAM meeting with her where she was going to be speaking on a panel, and she invited me to go along. We went downtown. Everything was great. And she had a tutu on. And I was like, Trish, what are you doing? She's like, it's Tutu Tuesday. And it's just who she is. And I love her for that, because she just doesn't care. She's going to be her. And if you want to work with her, great. If you don't, that's cool too. And if that's what you're basing your opinion on, who cares? I love, like, when Trump was president and they had the manufacturing roundtable, she was there. And the story she told me was, they told everybody, like, dress very plain, dress, monotone, sit in this specific seat, whatever. And Trish was Trish, and she wore this, like, colorful patterned suit.
Love it.
With her patent glasses, and sat where she wanted to, right next to the president. And, like, it was glaringly like, who is this girl? She's totally different than everybody else. And Nicole Walter is another one. Nicole is not in the plastics, but she's in manufacturing. And she's another person that, like, she's going to be Nicole. And if you don't like Nicole, get out of the way, because Nicole is taking over, and she doesn't care. And she's very passionate. She's very knowledgeable. She can run all the machines in her facility. But she is not going to change who she is for anybody around her.
And we're so much stronger when we embrace, and when we really embrace ourselves for what we are, and when we are authentic. It's just such a stronger, everything is stronger, right? Patricia Miller. And one thing too is, like, just owning who you are. I remember, I think it was my women's, because Patricia Miller was on one of my women's networking panels that I did. And I think it was on there that she said, people hear me talk and they think I'm like 4 or like 12 or something like that. And it's like, yeah, you acknowledge that and you own it. And it's like, okay, cool. Now listen to what I'm saying, you know? And it's like, it's just amazing, embracing that authenticity.
I've learned so much from her, and just like that freedom of, like, yeah, I can be me. I told my brother that a while ago. I was talking to my brother, the one that's not in the industry. And we were talking about things in life and how is it going? And am I finding my own role and my own place? And I said, dude, for the first time in my life, I feel like I can just be me, like authentically me. Like, I don't care if you like me or not. I really don't. I prefer when people like me. I am a people pleaser, but if you're going to decide that you don't like me for whatever reason, that's okay. I'm not going to change who I am to fit that box or make you like me more, because you're not going to like me. You're going to like that persona that I'm trying to be.
Yeah. That's going to be a weaker persona because it's not you.
Right. Yeah. And you will slip up, and you will make mistakes, and you will fumble, and people are going to go, oh, I thought you were this. You've been faking it for this whole time. That's, I don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the areas that I think that you shine with that is the WTF MFG.
Yeah. So that was kind of, the same way that so this is a new project that I started when I was unemployed. And now that I have, a job again, and now that I know what I'm doing here, I'm going to have some more time to do it. So it's just short form videos. Initially just short form videos, right around a minute. So limited to a minute so that I could share it on Instagram easily and share it on TikTok, where it's had actually the most feedback on TikTok. So that was really exciting. And I'll get into why I did that in a moment. But the concept there was just doing short form videos explaining different manufacturing concepts, different STEM concepts, different processes, terms. So I did one on injection molding and just explained it like mixing a drink. I was like at my bar cart at home and I was say, here are your pellets, here's your, here are your colorants, you mix it together, and then I just can't pour it out as like a pre-frozen ice cube, I think. But,
Right.
but, so explaining these concepts just very quickly. And the purpose was to engage a younger demographic and to engage and educate people maybe who work in the industry, but in non-technical tasks, non-technical roles. So understanding, the one that I'm going to do on master batch, the way that I've started explaining that master batch versus compounds is, you can go to the store, if you're coloring a material, you can go to the store and you can buy a bouillon cube, right? Or you can buy a thing of broth. And if you're buying the thing of broth, it's like you're paying for the water, right? You're paying extra for the water, you're paying extra for the mixing, you're paying extra for the packaging, and you're paying for the transportation, right? Because it's a lot heavier. And if you're thinking about storing all this, right, if in your warehouse, you're paying for the space, right? And you're looking at the space in your own, the space that it's taken up in your own pantry. And so explaining manufacturing concepts in ways that pretty much anybody can understand them.
I think that is the coolest thing. Like I've watched them and shown them to people like crazy because it's something that's missing. People don't fully understand our industry, much less people in the industry and people outside the industry. For sure, when we give tours and I try and explain what a plastic injection mold is, people are like, huh? What is it? And my easy explanation is, have you ever gone to the zoo? And you go to the zoo and they've got that little machine there and you can get like a wax elephant thing. Yeah. And most people that come into our facility, I'm like, and you get your little wax elephant, that's a mold. And it's just a wax mold, not a plastic mold. So the way that works is, the wax is heating up, the mold closes, it goes in, it fills up, it cools down a little bit, and then it shoots it out. We do that same thing, but with plastic. And this is why it's important. This is how we do it, blah, 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 blah. And they go, oh, I didn't get that. But people don't realize that pens, iPhones, computer parts, everything around us is plastic and made that same way.
Right.
There's only a few different processes on how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that you're simplifying it down for people to be able to understand in a 1-minute bite.
Because it should be approachable, right? I didn't know about this industry. Had I known, gosh, like I wonder where I would be, if I'd gotten right into it. But it's something like, I didn't even know that this kind of manufacturing happened in the United States when I was growing up in San Francisco. I thought everything was made in China. And so giving that kind of exposure to the industry, making it very short form and shareable and free, right? I'm hoping is going to draw people with diverse backgrounds and diverse thought into the industry so we can make it stronger.
Yeah. And it can be that simple. It's not that complex of a thing to do. It's just, once you get into it, the details of it are difficult, but other than that, it's it's something easy and it's something that people should understand.
It's not just another job fair, right? Like it's not just another education fair or something, where but anyway, just bringing new ideas. That's why we did the podcast. That's why you're doing the podcast too,
Yeah. So you've got a thing in our notes that says new innovation project. What is that?
Yeah. So this is actually kind of coincides with some of the stuff we've been talking about, but this was a kind of a happy accident. So, and I can't do the full thing here, but maybe if people follow me on Instagram, there's definitely posts there, but came across kind of a happy accident in the lab, and started developing a new line of color chips. So they're not going to look like much here, but like I said, you'll be seeing them. We're going to start working on some promotion for this stuff, but these all do some pretty dramatic color changes. So for example, this one turns into a purple color under different light sources.
Okay.
And the idea here, so the other group association that I'm a part of is Color Marketing Group, and that's like the premier group for association for global color forecasting and trend forecasting. So really the driver behind this is duality, right? It's the duality of the digital and the real, the digital and the nature, the masked and unmasked, becoming the true authentic self. But what these are, so we discovered this happy accident with the first chip on Friday. And I was so excited about this. I came into the lab on Saturday and started doing new formulations. It's amazing having a key to my own lab. And I was listening to the band Slater Kinney and Bikini Kill. So in the early 90s, so I spent my middle school and high school years up in Oregon, and that was when the Riot Girl movement started. So it was third wave feminist movement, they call it. And without getting too much into that, so I was listening to that stuff, and I was thinking like, oh, these could be Riot Girl pigments. Now we have, unlike a lot of companies, we have a lot of women at Peacock and Vortex. Okay. And so we have 3 women in the lab here and 2 women in the lab up at Vortex. 2 men here and 2 men up at Vortex, 2 in the lab. So pretty good ratio, right? So we have all these women formulating these colors now, and working on them, and I'm going to call them the Riot Girl line, and just got approved Monday to, I've been working on this pretty obsessively, but we're going to, all the proceeds, a portion of the proceeds are going to go to organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline and RAIN. So we're going to start promoting these soon. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. Because it's also this, I think when I posted the first one on Instagram, it was like, well, the story is like, this changes from this brown color to this fluorescent purple color. And it's like, oh, like this is the earth goddess goes to the club, So it's like, that's what it is. It's like, being your true authentic self, it doesn't have to just fit into one box also, right? It can be dynamic, and it changes. And we see too, this happening even in television now, they're writing characters a lot more dynamically, right. And it's relatable, because we aren't just one way, right. And we want different things at different times. And so that's the new innovation project that I'm really, really passionate and really excited about. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is not to get too much into it, and this is not about my ex-husband, who's a wonderful man, but I wasn't in an abusive relationship before, and so that was a hotline that I used. So it's a cause that's important to me, and got my boss to support it.
That's awesome. Again, with your being you, right, you're able to make a difference in impact somewhere that who would think that plastics could do that. Right. Mm-hmm. Like it's an area that is so outside of the box that why would anybody think it, but you made it happen because you bring who you are to the project and what you're doing at Peacock. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Those new colors, are those going to be recyclable, or are those,
yeah, well, I can't say too much about them yet, because it's like I said, I was formulating them on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be for the commodity resins. Okay. So we'll have more data on them soon, but yeah, awesome. This is just the beginning.
So we have a question that says, at Peacock, what is the most popular additive to plastic that you currently use?
Let's see, the most popular additive, I would say, without giving away too much information, and not the most popular colorant, but additive, wax. Wax is Probably. Yeah. I mean, we use different types of wax, dispersion agents and pretty much everything we formulate. So maybe that's not the answer they were looking for. Maybe they wanted like an antioxidant or like UV additive, but wax, is, helps everything, helps the dispersion.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. That's not just at Peacock.
Yeah. And so Michelle is new to Alliance, new to the industry. It's
awesome.
It's one of those things with diversity, right? We're hiring people for character and then training. So we think Michelle's going to be awesome. But she says, what was one of your biggest failures at Peacock, or we can just say in general in industry that you've learned from, and how did it contribute to a greater success? Oh, that's a big question.
That's a great question. I feel like I've had so many failures. And that's something where it's like, you have to fail forward. Each failure is something to learn from. What is my biggest failure? Gosh, I mean, I'm trying to think if I lost a big sale, or what would be, I mean, maybe my biggest, it felt like my biggest failure was my layoff, right? It felt like a huge fail. I felt like a huge failure. Right. And it was, part of it was just, okay, this is a layoff, right? It's not a firing, but you still go through, okay, well, what could I have done differently?
Right.
What should I have done differently? How can I navigate my next workplace so that I am never in this position again, hopefully. But so that was, and that if you want to reach out to me, I can give Michelle, I can give you more info, or anybody listening, I can give you more information on the specifics of that. But definitely the layoff was a really, really hard time in my life. And just learning that I had an amazing support network, people like you, Tony, who reached out to me. And that it was still going to be okay for me to be myself. And maybe my previous company wasn't the right company for me to be myself at. And that's why I'm here now and thriving, and helping others thrive, which is so huge for me.
This is not a brag, but I've never been laid off. I've never been fired. It's been luck, I think, more than anything. And plus, my wife and I worked for ourselves for 10 years doing graphic design and marketing. So, we've had clients come and go and things like that. But, I took 10 years out of my work experience where I couldn't get fired. So that was a good thing. But one of our friends, Chris Cisnowski, he got laid off from a company that he was very passionate about. And I don't have a problem saying his name because, we'll get to that part. And my opinion was Chris was being held back by the company he worked at because he's so passionate about what he does and just such an innovator and everything. I saw him at church and I walked up to him and I was like, dude, I heard you got laid off. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm so happy for you. He's like, what? And I said, if there's anybody that I think that can like take that layoff and do something amazing with it, it's you. Like, I have no doubt that you're going to take this and you're going to do something amazing and you're going to grow and you're going to change the world and get a better job because you're not stuck in this thing. Like, the doors are blown wide open for you. You have so much opportunity. I'm so excited to see what you do. Yeah. And he was like kind of taken aback. And we talked about it later. He's like, nobody like has approached me that way. Like, everybody was kind of like, I'm sorry, but like the condolences. And he decided he started another company. It's called Waterly. Waterly is trying to change the way that people that municipalities track their water and make sure that they have the right flow. It's clean. It's all this stuff. And it's like 1 billion steps and databases and all kinds of nonsense. And he's turned it into like a one-click app. Wow. And it's amazing. And that's it's like, great. It's not $1 million. It's super affordable. And he has the software background. He's got the knowledge background. He was working for a water company before, and he just took that knowledge and he's really passionate about it. And he's growing it and thriving and just killing it. That's and so I'm exciting. Like, it's so awesome. So if you're a water municipality or you know somebody, call Chris Cisnowski with Waterly. He'll get you all set up. We do not have a advertising fee with them or anything like that. I just really believe in what he's doing and who he is as a person, and he's going to be wildly successful. It's
Mhm.
just one of those things. And where you talk about like those biggest failures, sometimes it's hard to see that failure, because if you are an optimistic, positive person, you're looking at that and you're going, that's not a failure. That's a stepping stone. That's just, I had to go through that to get here. And then I had to
Right.
get through that to get here. And sometimes you go backwards a little bit and it's not just a straight line, but failure is an attitude. It's not
Right.
a circumstance.
Yeah. What is that? I mean, there's a famous Michael Jordan quote about failure, right? Like I've failed so many times. It was something like I've failed so many times and that is why I succeed, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
But the other side is, if you don't try and because you're afraid of failure,
Hmm.
you're never going to succeed. You're
Like
never
that
going to
great
get
video that
anywhere.
you posted of the basketball or the
Oh yeah.
football through the
Yeah.
basketball hoop. That was amazing. I loved that. I love that.
And it's so funny because like we post like crazy. Mary
Mhm.
Kate does a great job posting our social media.
Mhm.
We post stuff all the time, and that video got more comments than anything else. Like
Mhm.
um even on LinkedIn, which is supposed to be just business, I think people are excited to see real people and
Mhm.
not just business. People
Right.
want to
This.
do business with real people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like that simple thing got so much feedback.
Right.
When I started, you're a musician, way better musician than I am. I wouldn't even call myself a musician. I'm a dude that bought a guitar to try and learn how to play. But I've gotten more feedback on people saying, so when are you going to do the follow-up and show us how far you've come? Are you still practicing? Are you still trying to play? Like things like that. And we get less comments about, tell us about this laser welder that you have,
Mhm.
because that's not what people want to do work with. I think
Right.
things are changing. Industry is changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I was in so another association that I'm part of is the Industrial Designers Society of America. And I'm not really an active volunteer in that, but I do attend a lot of their stuff. And um one of the virtual events that I went to, um, a guy was talking about designing of marketing versus branding
Mm,
and how really it's branding and people don't buy from you because of marketing. They buy from you because of branding. They want to know,
right.
and branding is about, who you are,
Right.
right? Um, and if you're just cold calling somebody, and you say, "Hey, I have all these products, and don't you want to buy them?" No, but telling the story of, maybe there's a yes, right? If you call enough places, you'll get yeses. But if you call somebody and say, "Hey, this is our company. This is who I am.
Right.
This is my background. This is
Right.
what our company is about." That's way more compelling. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Mary Kate is on YouTube with us, and she said people want to know about the why.
Hmm.
It's true. I mean, Simon Sinek did that so good, explaining the why and what and how that's important to your business and your
Hmm.
process, and the reason that people do business with different people. It's not because of that product. It's the why behind that product.
Hmm.
And I think, you and I did a thing for SPE where we talked about marketing and branding and all of that.
Hmm.
What was that for? Was that I was
Did it?
with it
I don't think
was
that
a
was with
virtual
me.
one. Was it with
What?
Lindsay?
I think it was with Lindsay.
All right. It was with one of the Plastchicks. And like that question came up about marketing and sales and branding and how they all tie in together as
Hmm.
one thing. And I think your brand is who you are, right? Your brand is your why. It
Hmm.
is everything about your company, yourself. Like you can have a personal brand.
Right.
Everybody should have a personal brand and know who they are, what they stand for, why they do what they do. And that's your like that's your focus.
Yeah.
And then your marketing is what you send out to people so that they
Hmm.
can understand and appreciate your brand.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the story of your brand. And your sales staff is just living, breathing brand. They are your brand in flesh. They should tell the story of your company by the way they act, the way they are, the way they the way they present, all
Mm-hmm.
those things. And not saying, like we talked about before, they have to fit in a box,
Mm-hmm.
but you should hire people that fit your brand.
100%.
And
Yeah.
if you don't, you're selling yourself short.
Yeah.
And all of those things have to play together, and one can't be different than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many times people go, brand is your logo. No, it's part of it. But there's a story behind that, and what is it, and how does that work, and
Right.
diving into it. And so many people just get that, they don't get it. They don't get all
Right.
the different parts on how to make that company grow and move forward and succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually Matrix 4, Patricia Miller
Yep.
that's another one. It's like when you talk to her and you talk to other people at her company now too, it's like, wow, oh,
Right.
this is the why. This is meaningful. And this is a company that I want to work with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think more and more companies are starting to do that and embrace that. And I hope they are, because it's a missed opportunity. There's plenty of companies that I think we do work with that, this is not saying anything bad, that I don't think they have the same values we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get what we do as a whole, and why, and the values that we bring. And that's fine. But I would prefer to work with people that totally get it, and they
Mm-hmm.
want what we want, and all of that. What does my brother say? He said, Chris says, I think sometimes the hardest thing about cold calls is getting to the person that you need or want to talk to. Any advice to get to the right people smoother?
Yeah, that's a great one. So getting past the gatekeeper.
Gatekeepers are so good now.
Yeah.
They're like the greatest goalies ever.
They are. They're like, yeah, there's some serious like Hope Solos. For me, so when I cut my teeth in sales initially, as you know, Tony, but a lot of people don't, I was doing door to door and business to business sales. You get 80 no's and 2 yeses, and that makes your paycheck.
Yep.
But so a lot of my job was getting to the gatekeeper, and with that, it was just sticking to the script, and just it was a numbers game,
Yep.
But when you're dealing with this industry or industries where you're actually doing more relationship building, it's just that, and you can develop relationships through SPE. You can get past the gatekeeper if you're involved in SPE, hands
Right.
down. I remember my first conference that I went to. I had been in the industry 1 month, and this is probably the reason why I got involved in SPE ultimately. Our technical director was not going to be able to go to Antec that year, the annual technical conference, but he was registered. So they sent me, it was in Indianapolis. So I just drove down. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And my boss said, don't worry, just learn and try to find out who's in charge of Holland Colors right now, who's running Holland Colors. And so I go down there and go to this networking session where I met Kate, like I said, Kate Pellet. And it was like for students and young professionals. And then there was a guy, Jaime Gomez, who's one of the past presidents of SPE. I call him Dr. President. But he was very involved, supportive of younger people in the industry. And so he was in this session too. And then later on, it was like the first, the awards gala. And so everybody changes and goes down, and I see Jaime again, and he's like, oh, Mercedes, like, come sit with me. And so we're sitting at this round table, and everybody's introducing themselves, and he gets to Jaime, and he's like, oh, I'm president of Holland Colors. And I said, oh, and then I was like, oh, I'm Mercedes Landázuri. I work for Apex Colors. He's like, Apex Colors, are you my competitor or my supplier? I'm like, hi, I'm your supplier now. But that's a great way to get past the gatekeeper, just through getting involved.
Yep.
In SPE, not just, and you get out of it what you put into it,
Yep.
So as people see you volunteering and get to know your work ethic, they're going to want to work with you, and they are going to, if they're not the person you want to talk to, they will help you get to the person that you want to talk to. It's just such a big industry, but small world.
And I think when you're cold calling, to your point, right, that's all a numbers game. There is no tried and true way to do it. It's just, it's the luck of the gatekeeper letting you in. And that's fine. The relationships is where it's at. I mean, just from, a couple of the things that I've signed up for with SPE and some of the speaking things that we're doing, it's opened up more doors than, I could have never contacted those companies and gotten the right people. Right. It's building a relationship with this person who knows this person who knows this person who can sneak you in the back door and right past the gatekeeper. But in business and sales, you have to do some cold calling.
Yeah.
There's certain things that help out and that can increase your odds, but it is a numbers game.
And if you're authentic, you can learn so much from the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
They can give you so much information, like, oh yeah, like instead of just trying to develop even a relationship with the gatekeeper, I would always, when I first started and trying to sell to master batchers, I literally approached it the same way I did my business as a business sales job. I would just walk in without any appointment and talk to the receptionist and try to learn from the receptionist about what they do and who they work with and who the person I needed to talk to was. And that's something that I continue to do. I always make a point of writing down the person at the front door's name or the person who answers the phone. And I try to remember their names and remember a couple things about them, building a relationship with them,
And see, I think that's a huge thing, right? That gatekeeper is usually, I'm guessing, the person that people don't want to talk to, right? They're like the left behind. They're the person that they're like the leper. Nobody wants to get the gatekeeper. They hope the gatekeeper's not there. So it's like an easy target to get to know that person.
Right.
So they like you and they want to let you in. But if you look at them as, like we talked about before, a nemesis or a problem or exactly that, the gatekeeper, instead of the person that's going to give you the information and allow you in. I don't know what you want to call them, but it's a shift in attitude, I think.
And it's funny. There's this woman, I don't know if she's still there, but a receptionist named Lola in Indiana. And she's maybe 70, and I remember meeting the then president of the company, maybe he still is. And I said, "Oh, Lola is amazing." And he was like, "Yes." He's like, this is a big company. He's like, "Yes, Lola is." He's like, honestly, I will ask Lola when I have a salesperson coming in, I will ask Lola, "What do you think of this person? How does this person treat you?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's leadership, it's life, it's all that stuff, right? Like, how do you treat people when nobody's looking and when you're not trying to get something from them?
Totally.
Grant Cavalier, our friend Grant,
oh, Grant.
Has two questions for us. He says, "Hi, I'm curious if there's a book or a video you would recommend, like just in general. Do you have a book, business book, or a video that you like that you would recommend?"
Man. Okay. So the one that I really like lately, it's so simple and it's pretty short. I'm not sure what it's called, but I'm sure you can find it just by me describing it. It's just an Arnold Schwarzenegger video about, my former governor, since I'm from California, the governor.
Governor.
Yeah. By California grown. It's about having vision. And he talks about, I thought it was so powerful. Especially, interviewing with different companies that have vision and articulate it very well, like this one here. But, Arnold said, "Oh, I was young when I saw my first cover of the magazine with Mr. Universe or whatever it was that he was aspiring to." And he's like, "That's what I wanted."
Yeah.
I saw that and I knew that's what I wanted. And then I started working out more and more, and people thought I was crazy. They just couldn't believe how much I would work out and like how hard I would work out. And he said, "Well, for me, it was easy. Because I had a vision. I knew what I was working for, and that made everything easy." So maybe I just gave the whole video away, but that's like my recent, like, good find. Another one, I've been watching a lot of Jack Welch videos lately.
Okay.
He was the CEO of GE, and he talks a lot about, he has so many good things to say. But a great thing that he said, now that I'm managing people again, is you have to be honest with your people and let them know, it should never be a surprise if their performance is poor, and it should never be a surprise if their performance is great.
Right.
But also you have to be the generosity gene he talks about, and you have to be excited as heck to promote your people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all that. I think for me, the book that I like as a leadership book is called The Servant. I was given that book by the guys at Paragon. I love that book. I think it's so good, and I think it's a good example on how to lead as a servant leader, and
Yeah.
what that means. Not to be a dictator, not to try and create fear in people and rule with an iron fist, but um, lead in a way that says, "Listen, I'm going to do this first, and I'm going to help you. My role here is to help you to succeed, and not the other way around."
Yeah.
It's a great book. It's not very long. It's an easy read, but I love that book.
That's all. Yeah. And if you're looking for a denser one on servant leadership, which is also my jam, there's the deli and the string of businesses, Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they have a leadership school, management courses there. And so they have a series of books. And the ones that I like is a lapsed, I think it's called A Lapsed Anarchist Guide to Leadership or to Servant Leadership or something like that. But yeah, the Zingerman series is really great stuff. And it blew my mind when I started reading about servant leadership. It is a thick book and it's very dense. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm not going to read that one.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. It sounds
Yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
thick and dense is not in my in my wheelhouse.
But a little snapshot, because it's like, they started as a deli, and what I use here too is like, this guy who runs the company is like, you always has to come back to pouring water. If you're the owner, start going out and pouring water. Yeah, it's a task that bussers do, but the owner comes out and does it because he's like, you learn so much.
Yeah.
When you're pouring water. So, doing that in whatever your business is, go out and pour water.
Yeah. And not only that, but you can't, you're not, I don't think I'm above anybody that I work with. I just can't do what they do. We just have different jobs, but I'll help as much as I can. I'll do whatever I can to make sure that that's successful. My father is 67. And he's still the person that comes with us to set up the trade shows, and he's there till 10 o'clock at night if we need to, setting up the frames and the TVs and all the stuff and making sure it's right because he's a leader. And I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to learn those lessons from him, and just be able to have that firsthand, and not learn from somebody that was strictly a dictator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grant also wanted to know what the most positive lesson learned through COVID in our industry is, or your industry.
Oh, actually, I've got it.
Oh, yeah.
I've got it on a shirt. I'm glad that you brought that up, Grant. So this was something I was coming to terms with, or not coming to terms with, but it was starting to dawn on me. So, we talk about, and this is something I know that I've talked with Grant about. Grant and I actually worked at that sales company together. But, you grow the most when you're pushed out of your comfort zone. And the shirt that I have that I'm wearing today, not on
my
purpose,
gosh. Did you guys call ahead with this?
No, not at all. Your comfort zone will kill you. And so, I was thinking about that and thinking about like, oh God, this year feels so stagnant, and I was laid off, and oh my gosh, like this is awful, right? But then in retrospect, I wonder, because we've all been pushed out of our comfort zones. Maybe we're going to look back at this year and say, my goodness, this is the year the technology proliferated so much, like communications, and we all had to pivot and all had to learn so much so quickly, and children, as we both have children, and Grant does too, like dealing with virtual school. So like maybe and everything with the material shortages and in our industry. And it's like, maybe this year we'll look back at and say, this was the year that we grew the most and developed the most. That's been my biggest positive out of COVID, is that realization that we're all out of our comfort zones and we're all going poised to grow so much.
Yeah. I would say that, it's not so much that it was learned. Like I agree with everything that you're saying, that like technology has grown leaps and bounds. A year and a half ago, this would not have been a thing, right? We wouldn't have done this because we wouldn't have done it. There would have been no reason to. You wait and do it at a show. And now more and more people are doing this, and it's growing and it's changing the industry. And I agree with you on that side. But I think what's been solidified a little bit for me is the now people are going to roll their eyes at me. I would say the unimportance of planning, because you can plan 3 years, 1 year, 5 year, and in a moment it all goes out the window. And if you can't be flexible and adapt and shift, it doesn't matter how good you are at planning. Plans don't mean anything when the world changes.
Right.
You have to be able to shift. And for me, that's a lesson that, I mean, I'm terrible at planning anyway, so it kind of works. But, I think, don't worry about 6 months from now. Don't worry about a year from now. And for me, I'm a believer, and it's a biblical principle, right? Like God gives you today what you need for today. And don't worry about what you're going to have next week or next month or next year. We're not there yet. And when we get there, that will be provided to you. And you'll have it then. But focus on now, focus on your moment, focus on the tasks that need to happen, make decisions based on where you are today. And then tomorrow, next week, next year, that'll work itself out. You'll get there.
Right. So I was pulling up, if you could see, I was like, oh, I got to find this. So I'm glad that you mentioned this, because this was something that I know we need to go, but
this is what happens. It's
like,
fine.
But the concept of, so in a lot of color, and production facilities, there's a board that's laid out, right? And you have it designed always pretty much the same way. And I was kind of thinking about, well, this has been the same design for a long time. How can we change it to make it more effective? How can we help people? And I was also concurrently talking to a friend of mine in Tennessee, who is a plant manager in an extrusion company. And he was saying, hey, do you have recommendations for books or strategies to manage time and tasks and things like that? And we started talking, and he showed me what he was using. And it was like, same thing. It's like, I have like these 5 tasks planned out for 5 months from now. And I have this, that. So I started thinking about it. So he and I designed together a new strategy, and I'll just show you kind of. So the target here, I don't know how well you can see it.
Okay.
But the idea now,
I'm going to blow you up real quick. Hold on one second. I'm going to go to speaker view so that, all right, go ahead.
So this is just like the prototype, but I had mine set up by days of the week, just because it makes sense for our lab here. But he has his set up for months, right? And so the idea here is kind of what you're talking about. So it's, the outer rings, there's a lot more space, right? So you can get more specific with your tasks. So each of these little things, and you move. Now, if I don't say this one on the outer ring, say this is the current month, and then the next one is next month, and then 2 months from now, 3 months from now, right? So you don't have as much space to plan things in the future, right? And as you progress, you move them right into the target. But so that was the idea there. It's like, well, how can we visualize, and how can we see, okay, well, now we have to push this, to next month instead. And well, we aren't going to have time to do those 3 other things that we planned for next month. So how can we, strategize? So it was funny that you brought that up, but yeah, I completely agree.
And this is how we get into 3-hour-long conversations, because it just keeps snowballing. Like, Jonathan Quinn is watching us on Facebook.
Oh, nice. Hey, Jonathan.
He said he needs that t-shirt that you have. Not yours, but a version of it, because that would just be weird. But I think, I'm talking to somebody about doing coming on and being a guest on our podcast. And I went through the whole concept and the process with them. And, I said, it's usually about 45 minutes to an hour. It usually goes over an hour. That's what we shoot for. And they were like, well, I think I only want to do like 15 minutes. I was like, how do you do anything in 15 minutes? Like that our introduction was 15 minutes. I don't know how you do that. And, I would hate to just cut things off. I think people can turn it off whenever they want to, and they can fast forward if they want to. And, Mary Kate's going to go through this, and she's going to pick out nuggets and tidbits, and we're going to make separate posts on those so people can get just the general gist of it. But, I don't want to have something, and I think you guys you and Lindsay are the same way, where you can't plan what you're going to talk about. It's got to be a natural, fluid conversation, and what we talk about is what we're going to talk about, and how long it goes is how long it's going to go. Now you're in your boss's office, and she may want to get back to work. So we've been talking for an hour and change, and we should probably wrap up. So
Probably should.
um,
Yeah.
one of the things we do on the show is we ask for prayer requests. If anybody has any on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, anything like that, we'll give you a hot second. You can put those in there. I personally think that Grant had some really good questions today, so I think we can make him a winner. Are you okay with that?
I am great with that. Yeah.
All right. Michelle and Chris, you had great questions too, but we work together, so you're not going to win the prize. Yeah, we'll get you out a prize for being part of the show and asking some questions, and we'll wait a second to see if anybody has any prayer requests. Mercedes, do you have any prayer requests?
I do. I have two of my best friends are actually going through pregnancies during this crazy COVID period. So that's like some scary stuff. So actually, Lindsay is one of them, and then my good friend Jordan Nault is the other.
Okay. All right. Well, I will look forward. So if anything comes up, let me know. No, don't let me know. But I'll see it. All right. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this technology. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to my friend Mercedes, and for her passion. And we hope that this conversation inspires people to be authentic in the way that you created them to be, not to be afraid of being themselves, and to just know that you created them with a purpose and a reason, and you don't make mistakes. And so whatever you created them to be is who they should be. We ask that you would watch over us and keep us safe, and that we would realize that everything we're going through is a blessing, and it's just difficult to see it that way. And we pray for Mercedes' friends and their pregnancy, that they would go smoothly, and that they would be safe, and the baby would be safe, and that through all of it, you would be given all the glory. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mercedes, thank you for giving me an hour and change of your time, and more importantly, for your passion and your friendship. I really appreciate who you are, and just getting to know you. So thank you.
Same. Thank you, Tony.
All right. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Great. Thanks.
All right, everybody. I just want to thank you once again for watching the show, for being part of the show, for helping support what we're doing. I know that everybody's got a lot of things to do on a daily basis, and sometimes this gets pushed aside. But if you felt inspired at all, you like the show, you know of anybody that might like the show, please pass it on, share it with them, and encourage them to be part of it. If you'd like to be part of the Manufacturing Alliance show, send us an email at tony@alliancelasersales.com, and we'd love to have you on. We'd love to hear your story and help you be part of what we're doing and inspire others. So on behalf of myself and Mercedes, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of the show and the experience. Until next time, take care and God bless.